that, oh, wow. Speaking of strong, it looks like the map choice from MorroW is going to be GSL Crevasse. We're going into Game 2 right now. I am Day 9.
And I am Apollo.
Not D Apollo?
Or D Apollo. Apollo, D Apollo. I'm not sure which. I like it always.
You can give a little bit of a D in there. A little
I might do a
respect
D
to
later,
your
but for
own
now I'll
team.
stay Apollo.
That good old team Dignitas that has a few players out here today. I know Naniwa is out here. Show, I believe, is here as well. And we do have Mouse Sports MorroW spawning in the top left position as the Red Terran. And in the bottom left, we have Dr. Dimaga himself as that blue friendly Zerg.
And in this map and this game, I wouldn't be surprised if MorroW opened up for a very fast command center once again, going for that Rax early on just in case of any pressure from a 9 pull or 10 pull from Dimaga. And we'll have to see if Dimaga does get that overload. Okay, he's going to get the overload now, so we're not going to see any early spawning pull. And MorroW, like I said, will be going for a pretty early barracks into that command center, as you can see on the location. Very easy to grab that inside base.
Yeah, I mean, for any of you who are unfamiliar with this map, GSL Crevasse has a couple of very important defining figures. The one that Apollo just mentioned is this backdoor expansion with 6 minerals and 1 gas. So even though it's not very much, we'll note that you do have a small entrance at the front of your base, very easy to defend, and you can kill these destructible rocks and open it up a little bit more, but it looks like Dimaga's sending out an early scout drone. Another defining characteristic, you have a second natural that's outside your front, much more difficult to defend as it is out in the open. And of course, the high ground center, perhaps the most important aspect of this map. Aggressors have a big opportunity to do a lot of damage. And oh, look at this, Apollo. Look at MorroW saving up his money. Looks like we're going to see a command center first.
This is strong. This is awesome play by MorroW to go for that decision. And now, okay, Dimaga, I was going to say, which decision is Dimaga going to go for? Is he going to go for the more risky double gas natural outside of his main base, or will he stick for the safer route and go for this expansion inside his base? And as you can see, has chosen to go for this one rich Vespene Geyser expansion, as you can see now. Also, MorroW going for this command center first build. Very risky, though. Very risky on this map, because a lot of players do like to open up 10 pool to kind of capitalize on that kind of mistake that Terran players will fall into, but MorroW sticking to what he knows best.
This is very, very clever by MorroW, just basically exploiting his knowledge of the metagame that so many Zergs, and in particular Dimaga as a Zerg, very much so favors these long-term play. Going to exploit that by doing this fast expansion. You know, one thing that's not talked about enough is that this one rich Vespene Gas Geyser enables you to do very interesting mineral-focused builds where you just take this one single gas, and even though it just gives you 50% more, that's just enough to add a couple little touches of magic into your play.
You like sprinkle powder dust on me as you say that.
So we even see Dimaga exploit that by taking his extractor very early on at his backdoor expansion. Right now, MorroW already committing to a little bit of a marine-focused play with the early 2 barracks.
I'll have to see how late that MorroW's going to leave his gases. I suppose that he'll most likely follow with double gases at the same time and a few supply. But we'll have to see how he does that. And now Dimaga inside the base with the scout sees that there's no gas been taken yet, and a couple of SCVs being transferred over to this top base location up here.
Quite curious to see when MorroW is going to take his gas. As I always love saying, and of course we'll say that thousands of times this weekend, the #1 indicator of what a player will be doing in the game is when he takes his Vespene Gas Geysers. So we see MorroW has not taken any yet. Looks like he's going to be going for a very mineral-focused play. Ooh, he might even be going for a very early 3rd command center. I guess we call that a macro command center. If you can get a very early 3rd, you can do things like get tons of mules. But we do see 2 gas geysers going down from MorroW. There is the still non-stop drone production going on from Dimaga. In the unit counting station, we see no Zerglings whatsoever. Dimaga just favoring the queen-only, drone-only opening.
And Dimaga kind of needs to get more scouting information. I'm looking within his vision right now, and he has no idea, doesn't know anything about the gas, doesn't know, has MorroW added on a bunch more barracks, he has no idea, so he kind of has to prepare for everything. He's going once again for a very fast layer. He loves that style.
Oh, yeah.
And now MorroW pushing out with a few Marines to put a bit of pressure on, force Dimaga to build units rather than drones. And Dimaga has no vision until very late, actually. This is surprising. Usually you see Zerg players taking the opportunity of early map control with the Xel'Naga Towers, and MorroW actually not going to pressure. He might just be moving around the Xel'Naga Towers looking for overlords, looking for any positions to capitalize
could do
on.
a ton of damage right now. You know, Dimaga, I think, honestly, is very, very smart to just be going for the fast layer tech, given the fact that he saw that there was such late gas geysers going down, but I'm still going to be very worried about this very late defense, and there a drone gets taken down, and it looks like, oh no, Dimaga doesn't have, oh yes he does, his larva just popped off. Very fortunate timing for Dimaga. We see MorroW sprinting forward. He's going to pick off an Overlord. And honestly, many turns will just leave after that. Yeah, MorroW doing the very safe thing because, you know, I think a great way to put it is that you end up winning games not because you do a lot of damage, but because you prevent yourself from taking a lot of damage. So the best players you will see very, very careful about making sure their units stay alive, but Marines, unfortunately, not faster than speed Zerglings.
Dimaga needs to punish that. He cannot let that style go unpunished and let these Marines survive, and will kill them off. But did force a bunch of Zerglings to be made, which is what that goal was to do, sacrificing 5 Marines or so for that. And now MorroW actually has to wall off pretty fast in case these Zerglings run into the base because he doesn't have any units.
Oh my gosh, this last supply depot got down just in time, so it looks like Dimaga is going to take the opportunity to deal a little bit of damage himself. Still making a good amount of Marines. See that factory popping out right now. MorroW doing the very, very typical Terran style, which is you have 3 barracks making Marines, 1 factory making tanks. You can support this in the early game. Once you have a lot of SCVs, you can begin adding a lot more barracks, a lot more other factories and units. But MorroW, we've seen, has a little push in every game that seems to backfire just a pinch. So MorroW making sure that he's successfully established against some sort of Baneling play. But no, nothing like that coming up. More Infestors.
And I don't think MorroW's actually feeling that comfortable. I mean, I don't think he, first of all, didn't want to build on them supply depots, and then the bunkers. But at the same time, we do have a Marine down here scouting the 3rd base, which is, once again, trademark from MorroW. Gets that information. Now he knows that there is not going to be a Baneling bust because he's invested into this 3rd base. He knows the gas is being taken. Also, very smart play by MorroW.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. You know, you can get so much information just by seeing when things occur at the front of the vision range of your opponent. Sure, you can't get to see in his base to see if a Baneling nest is being made, but you know economically you can't both get a ton of Banelings and take this expansion at the same time. So you can just begin crossing things off the list. And interestingly, we see that no one has taken down the destructible rocks here, but Dimaga taking down the destructible rocks at his entrance, freeing a little bit more space. He can defend against drops a little bit more easily. And here goes MorroW into macro mode, once again getting an extra command center. And there we see factory number 2, factory number 3, starport number 1. MorroW taking steps to go straight into late game.
This is actually a lot better game by MorroW now. He hasn't made any critical mistakes. He's playing very fluid. He's going to be able to get that 3rd command center up quite safely. He's got these siege tanks. He's got a lot of Marines. He needs to spread them very carefully in case of any pressure. Dimaga, on the other hand, is killing these rocks, enabling locations so he can go around, surround a lot easier. And as a Zerg player, there's actually no reason why you should keep rocks alive. It's actually really bad when players do that. You should be killing rocks at all times with the idle lings. I'm quite surprised that Dimaga doesn't have control of the top left Xel'Naga tower. That's actually a key location to control.
Definitely.
Which is a little bit surprising.
And in particular, these top left destructible rocks, these are very, very important to take out because it leaves a gigantic counterattack path open. And in fact, MorroW and many Terrans are always very aware of this. These supply depots may have seemed like a little bit of a panic move, but MorroW can easily unburrow these to constrict that front if a big counterattack does happen. And look how responsible MorroW is about spreading these out, knows the threat of Infestors, knows the threat of Banelings, and so he's going to keep those nice and wide open. And my gosh, look at the outrageously fast hive. There goes down the Ultros Cavern. Again, it's gone down before the 12-minute mark both times. Dimaga, you are crazy and incredibly good at the same time.
I know, and a lot of players might overlook this, but I think this is absolutely genius from Dimaga. Getting 2 spine crawlers in the close air position and the hive on that location, because that is very dangerous. Hatcheries are sniped so often in so many different games. A very smart option there by him to do this.
So we do see now siege tanks continue to be spread at the front. There is another command center looking quite good in terms of the aggression that's going to be happening later on, getting a lot of factories. This might seem like overkill, but keep in mind, it is a short walk to Dimaga's base. Just needs to siege tanks up on this high ground and can do a lot of damage. Could potentially go for grabbing this high ground, but I mean, honestly, there's nothing wrong with just pushing up to this as a 4th base. We see Dimaga spreading the creep. He's going to try to shut down opportunities to do that. There's the +2/+2 going on. It looks like Parasites just getting done. The chitinous plating, which I did look up in a dictionary to find out how it was pronounced, the Apollo. It's not chitinous. Chitinous plating that will enable that +2 armor on those Ultralisks. And man, Dimaga has, I'm getting a little worried for Dimaga. 43 Marines versus 68 Zerglings and 6 Infestors. Dimaga has what we call a cute defense. He can hold off a lot of variety, but struggles against a straight, solid push like what MorroW has in store.
This is really good for MorroW. Now moving down, actually hold that thought.
6 barracks going down.
Macro Terran. As I was saying, though, but MorroW's slowly moving down to get ready to take this base. Will want to get rid of Creep Tumors quite fast. Taking a bit of damage there, but nothing too big. Will get rid of these Creep Tumors and take that base. As you can see, now being moved down, and slowly but surely, with these upgrades that are soon to be finished, he will be going for a push directly south, slowly pushing, and it's going to be pretty hard for Dimaga to defend.
I love this technique by MorroW to move around with the medevac and the Marines to be able to pick up. We have Marines spreading themselves out. MorroW slowly trying to advance forward, just trying to make sure he can establish control over these locations. On that top left, Xel'Naga Watchtower, as you said, Apollo, so important. Those destructible rocks in the top left are still alive, but here come the Zerglings to begin to take them out. And oh, look at this MorroW already having a tank there to defend it.
So smart. Where is that tank?
It's actually positioned right
I
back
can see
here
it's like
at the
hiding in the
ledge.
trees.
Oh my gosh, he's trying to counter the observers. Great play by MorroW to keep that tank hidden from even us.
So many Creep Tumors being sniped now by these Marines. I think they got about 5 Creep Tumors running away from a bunch of Ultralisks, and there isn't that many units here.
Not many units at all from MorroW. Has not really stimmed either, but we see the tanks way in the back, going to be able to do a lot of damage. But there we see Dimaga picking up one of the tanks from MorroW. MorroW now trying to stim the Ultras from the front, absorbing the damage. The Neural Parasite from behind, dealing so much damage. Dimaga managing to break through with just Neural Parasite and Ultralisks. Oh my gosh, This is a phenomenal push by Dimaga. Has now broken through all the way to the natural. MorroW trying to macro as best he can, making Marauders, getting that Ghost Mobius reactor upgrade, but MorroW might just lose this expansion right here.
He's gonna lose a lot of SCVs, that's for sure. 2 tanks are gonna go down as well. Fungal growth on that, and wow, Dimaga will be pushing through. There's so many Ling reinforcements, and this could be the end of MorroW in this first best of 3.
Oh man, MorroW, just one of the players. There it is, GG. One of the players who many considered to be one of the top contenders for this tournament. Been taken down in the very first round, but keep in mind, never any shame in getting taken out by Dimaga. I mean, if we look at the rest of that group, I mean, honestly, I think that they are really some of the strongest contenders in Group B. I mean, we have Braddock, Dystar, Night End, and Sake are the other players in there, and I do think that Dimaga and MorroW have winning records against all those in other tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, just MorroW and Dimaga playing against themselves in other tournaments, it's so close. A lot of the times they are very close playing against each other, so it really can go either way. But I feel that matchup was kind of favored to Dimaga. MorroW's TVZ, like we said before the game even started, he's only been playing TVZ properly again for like a week, which isn't really enough to practice, because obviously he's got a very, very strong ZVP. He's got a very, very strong ZVT, but then he's not so confident in his ZVZ, and now having to resort to switching back to Terran. I always felt that matchup was kind of in the favor of Dimaga.
Yeah, and I mean, again, no discredit to MorroW's skills. I do think, though, that if MorroW just cleans up a couple of tiny tweaks, it's not even the thing that requires a lot of practice, or a lot of study. It's just making sure that he keeps those tanks a little bit more intelligently spread out. There were only 3 or 4 tanks at the front, and the other, like, 9 were way back by that second base sieged up. And the fact that he wasn't able to stim all those Marines meant that he was doing almost minimal damage during that attack. But, I mean, regardless, this means that MorroW will start off 0-1, but it is top 2 from each group. We do see there are 6 players in these groups, so MorroW is going to have to start off really buckling down. It's always a really gross feeling in a round-robin group to start off 0-1, but no big deal. MorroW has done it many, many times before.
I'm looking at the group, and that is the only Zerg player that's going to, I mean, the only other Zerg player in the group, and his ZVP and ZVT are so strong that I think he's going to pretty much be at the top of that group for sure at the end of the day.
And likewise, I mean, Dimaga, again, always a strong contender at any tournament, so would absolutely not be surprised to see Dimaga advance through his group and advance very far in the bracket. Dimaga hasn't really reared his face in many of the huge major tournaments. Mainly, Dimaga has been participating in a lot of minor online cups. So I think this is a cool opportunity for Dimaga, who has not done a lot of traveling as of late, to really make a big impact, because as we've seen, that is some very crisp Zerg style that we saw.
Indeed, and one of the most critical mistakes, though, in that game, just wanted to briefly point it out, is that Dimaga hit a huge timing, which was before that 4th base actually was landed. If that had been a planetary fortress and he'd got tanks in position, then I think MorroW would have gone into that a lot in a better situation. But like you said, his units was so far back and so on.
But it's not very typical to get Ultralisks at like the 10-minute mark. So big props for Dimaga for figuring that style out really, really cool to see the sort of innovation that's been going on with Zerg. So before we end up disappearing for a brief period of time, I wanted to let you know that every hour on the hour, we will have some amazing matches coming up. Do you know what the next match is coming up, Dr. Diapollo?
I do.
Who is it going to be?
In 10 minutes' time, it's going to be Tyler versus Rhett. That is a sick game.
A big PVZ, because Tyler is known for being the master of preparation, has these extremely beautifully, crisply timed builds, is not afraid of experimenting with very unusual styles. But the problem that I've always seen Tyler have is that he consistently will die because he doesn't prepare enough. If you end up doing one of those very fragile styles, you end up being your own worst enemy if you haven't prepared enough. But Rhett is a little bit more of your typical standard Zerg player, but that doesn't make him bad by any means. In fact, he's one of the scariest you will ever see at that standard Zerg. Almost never misses a larva inject.
He's got such a record in the NSL as well. It's like
the number one ranked player right now in the North American Star League, crushing the competition, really showing that you don't have to do anything fancy with Zerg. You can just straight up be good at making units and good at those tactical decisions and do quite well. So we will be taking a brief break. Do not go anywhere. This is Dreamhack Summer 2011. Best players in the world duking it out for that 200,000 kroner prize pool. I am Day 9.
And I am Diapollo.
Do not go anywhere. When we come back, we will have Liquid Tyler versus Liquid Red.